Yeah, this is a really cool and exciting opportunity for us. I think when your mettle gets tested as a team, in the manner in which ours has been, it's encouraging to see our team continue to rebound and to have really quality practices, really high energy, high spirited. And this morning was no different. I mean, it was spirited down to the very last play of practice. And that's a good sign for me, that our guys are continuing to come to work. I think they understand that the preparation and the effort needed for this ball game against a really good opponent at Iowa State. I touched on it early in the week, and then as I got a chance to continue to watch Iowa State, this is a very quality opponent. They're good in all three phases. Their situation is somewhat similar to ours. And they've probably lost a couple games they feel like they should have won. A play here, a play there, an inch there, an inch there. So to me, these are two quality teams getting ready to play Saturday night in a great environment. And, we're looking forward to the opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Coach. Go ahead, put your raised hand functions up, guys, and we'll roll through some questions. Ed, you can start us off.
You're muted, Ed. Sorry, bud.
Sorry, Coach. I just unmuted myself. I'm in radio. It's been 40 years. I got to learn sometime. There was a report yesterday, Coach, about an incident with Josh Moore at practice. Could you give us an update on that? Was that something that we need to learn about or know about?
No, he's getting coached, and that's what we do. I think sometimes, people get this misconception that, because I'm a player's coach, that we don't coach hard. We have a very demanding staff. We coach hard. We believe in discipline. We believe in doing things the right way. And when things aren't going that way, we coach our guys. And so, and whichever one of you guys felt like it was important to report that's your bad, not ours.
Brian, go ahead.
Yes, Steve, just kind of building on that. I mean, that's what I'm curious about is it's very easy for guys to, go off the reservation or whatever, but how do you keep them all together and keep them focused when times are tough?
Well, I think that's what leadership is about. I think that's from me, from our coaches, from the veterans on our team. I think our team, as I said early on, has practiced and prepared really well for this ball game. We know it's going to be a hard-fought game, and we knew what was going to be needed to prepare to put our best foot forward. I think we've done that. Obviously we've got a walkthrough tomorrow and some meetings tomorrow night, and then ultimately Saturday before the ball game. But I think our players get it. They recognize, hey, we're close. We got to keep grinding, and we'll break through here at some point. But we also know we're going into an environment and an arena where we've got to earn the respect of our opponent. And the way to do that is to playing good football.
Bob, go ahead.
Sark, is it hard to kind of understate the value that Jordan Whittington had in this offense and what his loss meant? And I mean, you guys have lost so many wide receivers since the beginning of camp. How difficult has that been to establish a consistent identity there?
Well, it's not hard for me. I've said it all along. I've said it all the way back in spring practice. I thought Jordan was probably the first guy that really grasped what we were doing and kind of, really understood the offense and how he fit in the offense. And I think that carried over throughout summer into training camp. And then obviously the first part of the season. He was obviously a really good player for us on third down, invaluable in extending drives. So, when he goes down, you have to make the necessary adjustments to try to make up for the loss. And I really think it showed up last week some, Marcus Washington has really started to grow. Last week was probably the best game of his career here. He made some critical plays for us. And so that's part of the development. I say that a lot, that, we don't just try to develop the players that are the ones that are on the field at that time or that week. We try to keep trying to develop our entire roster whether they're true freshmen, whether they're walk-ons, whether they're a backup, because you never know when injuries occur. And when they occur, the next guy's got to go in. And I think that Marcus has done a nice job. Obviously, we moved Xavier Worthy around some and got him in some different spots to be effective as well.
Cole, you're up.
Steve, kind of a two-part question. When you look at how Matt utilizes Breece Hall in that backfield for the Cyclones and how they utilize him, especially on short down situations and on big plays, what do you mean? How do you find a way to stop him? And have you ever seen a running back that kind of mirrors what Breece does in the backfield?
Well, he's a very versatile guy. I think that he gets the hard yards in between the tackles. When he gets on the edge or into the secondary, he can create those explosive plays. And then they utilize him in the passing game in a way that, he can create explosive plays there, whether they're the wheel routes and different things or the check downs coming out of the backfield. So, at the end of the day, we know he's the focal point of what they do. But you still got to worry about the tight ends, the receiver, and the quarterback who can extend plays. But he's definitely the focal point, and probably very similar to Bijan, right? I mean, when I talk a lot about Bijan and what he provides for us, very similar, praise, right? In the versatility of their game, their ability to shoulder the load. When it's we're going to run it all day game, they can run it. When it's, you got to find creative ways to get them the ball, they can make those plays on the perimeter as well. So I would probably say that's a pretty fair, compliment to both of them.
Anwar, go ahead.
Coach, kind of building on that question, your run defense is ranked 118th in the country at this moment. How do you guys improve in that area?
Well, I think it's twofold. One is there's the discipline of being where you're supposed to be and running the call and being in your right run fit and your right gap. That's the first part of it. I think the second part is you've got to defeat your man. We've got to win our one-on-one battles better than we have. And that's been one of the challenges that we've posed to our defensive players. That's been something that we've been working on, that we can't just rely on the scheme to get the stop. Ultimately you have to defeat your man to make the stop. And sometimes, we can stop a run for a 5-yard gain, which, that doesn't feel great when, if we get off a block, it's a gain of 1 or a gain of none. So we're really challenging our guys of being more violent at the point of attack, using really good technique and getting off blocks and making tackles.
Roger, go ahead.
Coach, you talked about being, 2nd and 8 a lot Saturday. This is a defense that gets a lot of attention for the way they play. How important is it to stay ahead of the chains, and what problems do they possess when you get in those tough down and distances?
Well, I think the one thing they do, they've got a couple really good pass rushers. And when you get behind the chains and you play third and long football, now you open yourself up to one, their scheme. They do a nice job on third and long with their scheme, but two, they create the one-on-one matchups for their pass rushers to go attack the quarterback. So clearly, we want to win on first down and stay ahead of the chains. And if we are in second long, how do we get half of that or more than half of that back so that we can play third and medium, third and short football, which, the odds are better for you converting and extending drives. So this is a good team. They're very well coached. They've played a lot of football together. So I think they've got really good communication. They generally don't get themselves out of place. And if they do, the guy behind them makes them right. And that comes through experience. That comes through having veteran players. That's Rose at linebacker. That's Ellsworth at safety, and it's McDonald at defensive end. I mean, they've got a group that's played a lot together, and they work well with one another. And that's the value of experience, but it's also the value of the experience in the scheme over time together. They've had their growing pains, and they've worked through those growing pains, and now they play well together. They make you earn it.
Jeff Howe, go ahead.
Sark, you mentioned Bijan a little bit ago, and I was just wondering, as you've prepared for opponents now, and you're getting a better idea of, what teams are going to try to do to take him away from you. How do you maximize his snaps and his touches, but still, do it in a way that still makes sense, ideally, for the big picture on offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think one is, we're facing a different scheme this week than Baylor's base scheme was a week ago, which was different than Oklahoma State's, base defense, 2 weeks before that. So everybody's got their base scheme. And then within their base scheme, it's how do they effectively, focus on number 5 and making sure that they have enough hats in the run game and things of that nature. And then, our job as a coaching staff is to make sure that we've got the complementary plays available to a way they're defending certain things. And with all that being said, we still got to find a way to get number 5 the ball and get him the ball in space and create space for him in the run game. Because when we can get him to the second level, I mean, he's a really dynamic player, which we all know. And so, the difficult part is, you come out of TCU and he's got 30 some odd carries. Are you running him too much? You come out of last week's game and he's only got 17. Did we run him enough? Right. And that's the fine line of making sure that your premier player in that role is getting enough touches to find his groove, and the offensive line is getting in their groove to get their blocks done, but yet we're still efficient offensively. And that's really the balancing act every Saturday, right? It's the flow of the game. Every game takes on a life of its own. And you want to make sure that the guys that need to get their touches are getting their touches, and not get frustrated when, 2, 3, or 4 carries in, he hasn't snapped off a 50-yarder, but you trust it and you hang with it. But that also schematically, we're running the things that give us the best opportunity to do that.
Cedric, you're up.
Hey, Steve, you say you're getting the right effort in practice. You like the spirit that you're getting. And we understand that these guys have lost 3 games in a row. What's that fine line as a coaching staff that you have to walk between when do I push harder to get what I'm looking for, and when do I pull back? Because the fragility of an athlete is, it's kind of it's a fine line you have to walk.
I think, the one thing for us is we try to be really transparent with our guys. I mean, we don't try to manufacture tension or issues. We try to point out where we need to improve, and we try to point out the things that we're doing well. And then we try to give the guys a plan for success throughout the week of this is how we're going to go about it. Here's how you're going to play better. Ultimately, here's how we are going to play better collectively. And then you do the work, right? I mean, that's the only way to do it. So I think, just to get up and yell and scream, that make us as coaches feel good. But I don't necessarily know how productive that is and how that makes the player feel. So we try to coach, we try to teach, we try to be demanding, but we also try to keep our energy level right and our enthusiasm right to know when we do this right. That's how we make that incremental progress individually, so that ultimately as a team, we can make that incremental progress. So I do think there's a fine line. I think there's a mastery of motivating players. It's easy to motivate when things are good. It's tougher to motivate when things aren't going great. But that's the challenge, and you have to understand what you sign up for, and have a really good plan in place to motivate the guys to come to work every day. And I think our staff has done that, and I think we've seen it. And, I think that's why our guys show up every Saturday. We may not be getting the result we want right now, but our guys show up every Saturday and they perform. Now we need to execute better, especially those critical moments late in the ball game. But I'm not going to discount the fact that we come out prepared and ready to go every Saturday afternoon.
Kirk, you're up.
Yes, Steve. In a lot of ways, is this a lot tougher job than you thought it was going to be? And is it actually more of a rebuild than maybe you thought in the off season?
I don't think it's tougher. I think that, I knew what I signed up for, and I think that that's something, having had previous head coach experience at a couple other pretty high profile universities, you understand the expectation, you understand the challenge, you understand the arena that you're in, and then you can be, a little bit more comfortable in the arena of what those expectations are. And, I also recognize the level of frustration without us winning a couple of these close ball games. But I can assure you that nobody's more frustrated than we are. Nobody's more frustrated than our players are. And that frustration comes from, we know how close we are as well. And so, all we can do is continue to grind away. And I don't put, oh, we're a year away or 2 years away. Shoot, I want to win Saturday. And that's where my focus is. And that's what our staff's focus is and our team's focus is going to put our best foot forward Saturday and trying to go get a win in Ames, Iowa.
Got time for a couple last ones. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, just curious, what has this 3-game losing streak, I guess, taught you about the team? And then, during the streak, has it sort of changed the way that you approach certain guys just in terms of learning how to communicate with them and get through to them in terms of, guys respond differently to different styles?
Well, I think, I don't know if I've learned anything new. It's probably reinforced some things for me. I said this before the season, and I had to learn that through the off season. And then as the season's gone on, it's continued to show itself to me. We've got a very resilient team. This team can rebound from things that occur and come right back and get back to work. And like I said, I saw it all off season with all the different things that we had come across our plate. In assessing them from a year ago, I think that same thing showed up. And I think it continues to show itself now. We could have easily folded the tent after the OU game in the way that game had gone. And we came back out and fought and played well and played good in the first half. We didn't play good enough in the second half against Oklahoma State. And then the sky was falling. We could have done it again against Baylor, but we came right out, got a turnover, scored a touchdown, and came ready to go versus Baylor. And again, everything around our players is the sky is falling. But our players continue to bounce right back, and our staff continues to bounce right back. And so I think that's probably the resiliency has been reinforced to me of what we possess as a team, which is a great trait to have. Ultimately as a coach, I have to speak to our team in two different modes, right? One, I'm speaking to 115 guys in a room, trying to motivate, trying to teach, trying to critique, and do all the necessary things to continue to improve, but also have to do it on an individual basis. And, I have personal meetings every day with individual players. I'm coaching guys on the field individually, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams. And I'd be remiss to say that I didn't try to push different buttons with different players to get them motivated. I don't consider myself a one-trick pony as it pertains to my coaching style. I think you have to be adaptable, and you have to adapt to your players and to your team and push the right buttons necessary from week to week, from day to day, from season to season, quite frankly. So that's kind of the approach that we take.
Time for two last ones. Danny, go ahead.
Steve, first some clarification, then a question. Is Joshua Moore available for the entire game on Saturday?
Yes.
Okay, and then the question, you're obviously a guy who likes using multiple tight ends sometimes. What are your thoughts on Iowa State and how they use their tight ends?
I think they do a great job. Those guys are, all uniquely talented. They all have kind of their own skill set that they do well. I think they do a nice job of highlighting the things that they do well, and they put them in position to do those things. They're definitely a tight end driven team with the running back. And they force you into some situations because of the multiplicity of the formations, the motions, the shifts, and then the schemes to go along with it. I think this is clearly a game where you'd love to get ahead on first down. When we can win first down defensively against this style of offense, that hopefully gets them out of their comfort zone. And so that'll be a key component here Saturday.
Last one, Chip.
Steve, I don't know that we've asked you about the appointing of the captains by the week, and when you do that and what their role is during the week, as opposed to putting a C on 5 guys' chests and giving them that responsibility throughout the season.
Well, I think that, we have a leadership committee. We have a group of guys that represent every position group on our team. I think that, the season takes on a life of its own, right? And there's ebb and flows, and there's different things that come at us. And, we try to use it as a way to promote the guys that are doing things right, not only on the field, but off the field. And kind of Rolodex those guys through so that those guys are getting their opportunity. They represent our team really well when I meet with them and what they're doing off the field as well as on the field. And so that's kind of how we go about it. At the end of the year, the players will actually vote on who the captains were for the season. And I think that's a great sign. I've never been one to kind of elect captains before the season when nobody's really done anything yet in the year. And so at the end of the year, it'll be a heck of an honor for those guys that do get voted as the season team captains. But I think this way, it gives guys an opportunity to lead and to motivate and to represent our football team.